thanks. Yes. Oh, oh.
Okay, perfect. The heat has been turned up, so it won't be too hot in here. Two. If I close this now, the TV's off.
Page 322.
322, 322.
Or is it 332? It's 332.
332.
Page 332. Yedid nefesh av harachaman meshoch avdecha el retzonecha yarutz avdecha kemo Second paragraph. Ador nahe ziv haolam nafshi cholat avatecha ana elna refana והייתה לה שמחת עולם. יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, yalla lai 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 lai, yalla lai 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 lai, yalla lai 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 lai.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I think we really need each other's presence this Shabbat, so it's a joy to see you here in the room and those who are coming to us virtually. And it's a special honor to have Gary and Melissa Slobin to come up and kindle the lights. It's very meaningful, given that family's connection to the Ukraine and just who they are for us. So, page 2.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Page 12.
לכו נרננה לאדוני, נריע לצור אישנו. Page 13. Adonai, shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai baruchu shemo, basru miyom liyom yeshuato, sapru b'goyim kevodo, v'chol ha'amim nivrotav, ki gadol השמיים ותגל הארץ, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ, ירם הים, ירם הים, ירם הים ומלוא, ירם הים, ירם הים, ירם הים ומלוא. יעלו שרה וכל אשר בו, אז ירננו כל עצי יער. לפני אדוני קיווה, קיווה לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט תבל בצדק, ועמים באמונתו. אדוני מלך דגל הארץ, ישמחו עם רבים, ענן ברחל סביבה צדק משפט ניצחון כיסו. אוהבי אדוני, שא נאורה, שומר נפשות חסידיו, מיד רשעים יצילם.
Bottom of 14.
אור זרוע לצדיק וישרי לב שמחה. אור זרוע לצדיק וישרי לב שמחה. שמחו צדיקים באדוני באדוני, והודו לזכר קודשו, לזכר קודשו. אור זרוע לצדיק וישרי לב שמחה. אור זרוע לצדיק וישרי לב שמחה.
Joining together in the translation of some of those words on page 15, words that are so powerful in light of events unfolding around us. Adonai is sovereign. Let the earth exult. The many islands rejoice. Dense clouds are around God. We hear about that in this week's Parsha. Righteousness and justice are at the base of God's throne. Join me. O you who love Adonai, hate evil. God guards the lives of God's loyal ones, saving them from the hand of the wicked. Light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. O you righteous, rejoice in Adonai and acclaim God's holy name.
We're at the bottom of page 15. הריעו לאדוני כל הארץ, פיצחו ורננו וזמרו.
16.
זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור וכל זמרה, בחצוצרות וכל שופר. הריעו לפני המלך אדוני, ירם הים ומלואו, תבל ויושבי בה, נהרות ימחה וכף, יחד הרים ויעננו, לפני אדוני כי בא לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט תבל בצדק, וימים במישרים. ירם הים ומלואו, תבל ויושבי בה, נהרות ימחה וכף, יחד הרים ירננו.
18.
השתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש כל אדוני על המים אל הכבוד הרים אדוני על מים רבים כל אדוני בכוח היי לי לי כל אדוני בהדר כל אדוני שובר ארזים ושבר אדוני את הזה הלבנון וירקידם כמו עגל לי לי לי
Join with me on 19. The voice of Adonai kindles flames of fire. The voice of Adonai convulses the wilderness. Adonai convulses the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of Adonai causes hinds to calve and strips forests bare, while God's temple all say glory. Adonai sat enthroned at the flood. Adonai sits enthroned, sovereign forever. And now let's pay attention to these. May Adonai grant strength to God's people. May Adonai bestow on God's people well-being. Now those words in Hebrew.
Adonai oz le'amo yiten Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom Adonai oz le'amo yiten Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom.
So we're about to begin Lecha Dodi. And if you turn to page 20, I want to focus us on this last, the verse on the bottom of page 20, verse 4. When we say, look at that first line of Hebrew, Me afar kumi, rise up out of the dust. It's translated, shake off the dust. So if there's any dust that you need to shake off from the week, now's your chance. If you have to unload something, if you want to let something go, you can always pick it up on Saturday night. Give yourself a breath. We're getting ready to greet the bride, and we don't want to have any extra baggage, right? So even if it's just placing it mentally down to the side, we can do that. We can give ourselves this purity, this joy, this connection, this renewal that is Shabbat eternally. Top of page 20.
Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela Shahamor v'zachor b'dibur echad Yishmianu el hamyuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shemo tiferet v'litila לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Verse 5. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. I invite you to rise in your hearts or to your feet, whichever is most comfortable, if that is your custom, and to greet one another and the Sabbath bride in the spirit of peace. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי כלה, בואי כלה, לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. נא לשבת, you may be seated.
22.
מזמור שיר, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון.
22 at the bottom, join with me. The righteous bloom like a date palm. They thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in the court of our God. In old age, they still produce fruit. They are full of sap and freshness, attesting that Adonai is upright, my rock, in whom there is no wrong.
Tzadik, katamar yifrach, ke'erez balvanon yizke, shetulim beveit Adonai, shetulim beveit Adonai, bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu, or yenuvon beseva, deshenim veranenim yiyu, lehagi ki yashar Adonai, Suri velo avlata bo.
Before we say Shalom Aleichem to those angels on page 24, inviting you to say Shabbat Shalom to each other Give a wave to someone. Make eye contact with someone
Shabbat
you
shalom out
know,
there.
someone you don't know. Shabbat shalom to you
Shabbat shalom, Shai.
online. We're so glad you're here. You can
Shabbat
say,
shalom, Rabbi.
hey, Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Glad you're here. Shalom Alechem 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barechuni leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitechem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu is on 28. We rise either on our feet or in our spirits.
Yalla lai lai lai, la la lai lai lai. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Are you listening to my prayer? Barechu et Adonai Hamevorach, Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam va'ed. Yalla lai lai lai, la la lai lai lai, yalla lai lai. Page 30. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'ro ma'arim v'arim
And joining with me on 31. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain at the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over?
Baruch atah Adonai Hamariv Aravim.
32.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amchavta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu B'shochbeinu u'v'kumeinu נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ויורך ימינו ויורך ימינו ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה. אהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
Seated. 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך. על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem.
Amen.
Mi chamocha, page 40.
קודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא. מלכותך ראו ובניך בוקר ים לפני משה ומרים, זה לי ימנו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגואלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני קהל ישראל.
42.
השקיפנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, ויעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השקיפנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, ויעמידנו שומרנו, שומרנו לחיים. ופרוס עלינו, ופרוס עלינו, סוכת שלומך. ופרוס עלינו, ופרוס עלינו, סוכת שלומך.
I offer now a poem by Yehuda Amichai. It refers to a different conflict than the one we're experiencing at this moment, but its truth remains. The poem is called The Diameter of the Bomb. The diameter of the bomb was 30 centimeters, and the diameter of its effective range about 7 meters, with 4 dead and 11 wounded. And around these, in a larger circle of pain and time, 2 hospitals are scattered and 1 graveyard. But the young woman who was buried in the city she came from, at a distance of more than 100 kilometers, enlarges the circle considerably. And the solitary man mourning her death at the distant shores of a country far across the sea includes the entire world in the circle. And I won't even mention the crying of orphans that reaches up to the throne of God and beyond, making a circle with no end and no God.
ושמור צאתנו, הוינו לחיים ושלום ויתה ויד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו, ועל כל עמו ישראל, ועל ירושלים.
44.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש.
Our Amidah begins on 46. Rise if it is your custom.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Continuing with our own private prayers, seated or standing. We'll meet up again in just a few moments.
Feel free to continue davening at your own pace, or join me for the evening prayer for peace and wholeness on page 60. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Tasim Leolam. 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 Ki ata hu melech, Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech, Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Tasim Leolam. Vetov, Vetov, Vetov beinecha, levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, טסים טסים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך, טסים טסים לעולם. שלום, שלום.
Turning now to our prayer for healing on 253. If there are any names that you would like to offer for healing virtually, please do type them in. And any names you want to utter aloud for healing of any kind as I scan the room.
מי שברך אבותינו מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
So, the sermon will be on the screen because I want you to be able to see a full face. So it was pre-recorded, and I will have the excruciating experience of sitting here listening to myself. But ready whenever you are, Jason.
Part of what I see in my role as teacher of Torah is that I attempt to offer a mirror to reflect back world events, life events, through the prism of our sacred teachings, so that together we can process them and create some kind of a meaning to initiate a response. And so with that intention in mind, in my words tonight, I'll offer 4 different voices from different traditions and backgrounds, 4 distinct figures. The first is the voice of Pope Francis, who invited his followers to make this past Wednesday, March 2nd, Ash Wednesday, a day of prayer and fasting for peace in Ukraine. A second voice is that of Ukrainian activist Daria Kaleniuk, who, because of her anti-corruption activities, believes herself to be on Putin's immediate assassination list. This past Tuesday, during a news conference in Warsaw, Daria challenged Prime Minister Boris Johnson. After Shabbat, I urge you to Google that moment and listen to her impassioned plea yourself. Her words went something like this: NATO is afraid of World War III, but it's already started, and it's Ukrainian children who are taking the hit. Daria continued, you talk about more sanctions, Prime Minister, But Roman Abramovich is not sanctioned. He's in London. His children are not in the bombardments. Putin's children are in the Netherlands, in Germany, in mansions. Are their mansions being seized? I don't see that. I see my family members, my team members crying. We don't know where to run. This is what is happening, Prime Minister. Close quote. And the third voice, law student turned comedy and Dancing with the Stars star turned unlikely president who won by a landslide, Vladimir Zelensky, who, as we are all aware, is not only a Jew, but the grandson of a Holocaust survivor. When Babi Yar, the Holocaust memorial site, where an estimated 100,000 people were murdered by the Nazis, are buried, 34,000 of them Jews who were killed in just 2 days. When this site was targeted by Russian forces, President Zelensky called out to us, pleading, it's very important that all of you together, millions of Jews around the world, do not remain silent. Who cannot be moved by the sheer grit of this man, who, when he was offered a ticket out of a war zone, responded, I need ammunition, not a ride. We have now officially entered Adar 2, the second month of Adar, and are fast approaching the holiday of Purim. When Esther rose to power, an unlikely bride in the king's palace, her uncle Mordechai said to her these famous words, Umi yodea, who knows, im le'et kazot, if for just such a moment, higat lamachut, that you have risen to become queen. Centuries later, as we watch the breathtaking heroism of Zelensky, we cannot help but think of Mordechai's refusal to bow down and Esther's unlikely and fate-changing ascent to power. The Megillah of Esther describes a precarious and life-threatening world, very much like the one in which we find ourselves at this moment, a world with fear and darkness deepening as Russia deliberately targets Europe's largest nuclear plant, and 1 million refugees having already fled Ukraine, so many more on their heels, and what of those left behind? Where to turn for wisdom? I found my hand reaching to the top of my bookshelf where I keep a book, which is a compilation of Rabbi Jacob Rudin's sermons called Very Truly Yours. So Rabbi Rudin's is the fourth and final voice that I will offer tonight on this Shabbat, just before your new senior rabbi, Brian Stoller, will arrive to address our community in person Monday night. At this time, I am both reflective and very much aware of my and Mayor's role as a bridge between the past and the future. So it is fitting that tonight I should offer Rabbi Rudin's words. Just a few reminders. Rabbi Jacob Philip Rudin became a rabbi of Temple Beth-El in 1930 and served our community for 4 decades. We are, of course, seated, those of us who are watching in person, in none other than the Rudin Chapel. Rabbi Rudin enlisted in the United States Navy Chaplains Corps, and during World War II saw duty in the Pacific and the Aleutians. Informed by his own social and historical context, as we all are, Rabbi Rudin uses the masculine to describe both humanity and God. And the enemy to whom he refers in the sermon selections that I'm about to read to you, that enemy is Hitler and Germany. While we may imagine other names in those slots, we cannot help but feel a kinship with those who sat in these pews and heard these words some 80 and 90 years ago. As always, I am in awe of the timeless relevance of the sermons in this book. And so I'll just be sharing a few selections from 2 sermons. The first is from a sermon called Dark Horizons, and it was offered on September 20th, Erev Rosh Hashanah, 1933. Here goes, Rabbi Rudin's voice. Even after the most far-sighted of our leaders and the most pessimistic among the bearers of evil tidings, they did not dream of such a cataclysm as has befallen us. The sternest warnings are not strong enough, and the loudest cries not loud enough. The worst has come to pass, and it seems to be no end. And there seems to be no end, excuse me. He continues, if we do not beat into submission the vicious claws that have German Jewry by the throat, their baying will soon be heard in this and every other country. The deadly padding of their paws will be heard around our doorstep. The snap and click of their bloody jaws will ring in our ears. Fury has been unleashed. Death, destruction, and despair are riding wild. Because we Jews have thus far been the tragic victims of Germany's fanaticism and have borne the brunt of her madness, upon us devolves the double duty of leading the fight against everything that Hitler and his band stand for. Let us at least have the honorable satisfaction of knowing that we have done our duty to the fullest measure of our power and our resources. For if Hitler succeeds, it is only a question of time before we experience the same outbreak of hatred against us somewhere else. So the focus of that sermon, again, it was in 1933, was a call to boycott Germany. 7 years later, October 2nd, also on Arab Rosh Hashanah, but it was 1940, that Rabbi Rudin wrote a very different sermon. This one was called God in the Blackout. Here are his words then. And now we are in another war, and God's laws, though they are indeed eternal and changeless, take on another aspect. They do look different in the glow of incendiary bombs and against the growling, angry background of explosion and fire and death. What can I say? Asked Rabbi Rudin. It would be simple to pour forth my own agony, to join my sorrow to your sorrow, to add my questions to yours, the questions that beat like pounding surf against the shore of my inner life and being. I could point to our misfortunes and analyze our tragedy, parade, criticize, blame, accuse. But, says Rabbi Rudin, I shall not. I have fought through the tangle of my own fears, doubts, and questions. I have hewn some kind of a path through the trackless waste of my own darkness and despair. With this idea in mind, I address myself to the central question, which I know is in your minds and upon your hearts. And so here's the question that Rabbi Rudin asked. Where is God in this blackout of humanity? How can God allow the destruction of little children, of cities, of homes to go unchecked? There is an answer, he continues. There are no miracles. This world we have fashioned, not with God, but without God, not through God, but by excluding God. So where is God then? And this is what Rabbi Rudin said. God is in the blackout, in the blood and misery, in the tumbled homes and the destroyed cities. He is in the air raid shelters. He is in the heavens that rain destruction. God is in the war because man has made his choice. So Rabbi Rudin's insights about the absence of God are even more powerful as we approach the holiday of Purim. He was, of course, speaking at the New Year. But as we approach the reading of Megillat Esther, we remember that it is a scroll in which God's name is not mentioned even once. Written in exile after the destruction of the first temple, the story of Purim is one in which God's face and presence is hidden. It is a world saturated in cruelty That's what the Megillah describes. A world in which the spark of salvation must arise from the human soul. God is in the blackout, said Rabbi Rudin some 80 years ago. And he continued this way. God is in the war to save his word and this world and us, the Jews. And I would add, God is in Zelensky's words. I need ammunition, not a ride. And in his plea to Jews worldwide, do not remain silent. And let us imagine that Mordechai is asking us, Umi yodea, who knows? Im le'et kazot higat lemachut. Maybe for just such a moment, we have all risen to our own positions of leadership and influence, for each of us can be a leader in these days of moral blackout, as Rabbi Rudin may have described them. Now is a time for moral clarity. Now is a time for action. And back one more time to that fourth voice of Rabbi Rudin. God is with us who cry out against injustice and oppression. God is with us who know when mere pity is not enough. God is with men whose hearts are not hardened. God is with men whose hearts feel pain and suffering. We Jews know pain, we know suffering, and we know courage, and we know faith. Thank you, Rabbi Rudin. I close with words that come towards the end of Megillat Esther. And so it was on the 13th day of the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, when the king's command and decree were to be carried out, the very day on which the enemies of the Jews had expected to overpower them. V'nafochu, and the opposite happened. It is on that day that we were saved. And so I say this evening, Ken Yehi Ratzon, maybe that be God's will, and God help us, may it be ours as well. Our will to take courageous action, to overturn this blackout, and to move this world once again, somehow, impossibly, towards the light.
We continue with Words of Aleinu on page 282. Please rise. Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל עמונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. Coming now to Kaddish. If there are any names that you want to add virtually, anybody you're remembering, please do so. And if you're here in the room or online and I mention the name of someone you've come to remember, please rise when you hear that name and remain standing. This week marks the passing of Eli Marcus. And in the past 30 days, Shloshim, for Tova Gershon, Louise Coppell Feldman, Arnold Rosenfeld, Marion Sherman, Francine Stock, Stephen Seltzer, Norman Schoenbart, Joan Farrell, and the Yortzites this week for Norma Auerbach, Fanny Galberg, Adelaide Goldstein, Harold Hoffman, Louis Hollins, Sanford Jaffe, Francis Levine, Seymour Megev, Henry Muller, Jack Schwartz, Claire Louise Siegel, Henry Shapiro, Yetta Sherman, and Sylvia Teschner. Any other names omitted or mispronounced? If it's your custom to rise for Kaddish, please do so. We're on 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. V'agalau v'zman karib v'yimru.
Amen.
Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha
Richu.
Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'miran bi'alma v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru
Amen.
amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
May the one who creates harmony and peace and healing on high bring that to all of us, to all Israel, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, to all humanity. We say one last time, amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. Before we go into Kiddush and Motzi, I'm going to call up Gary Slobin, our president, to offer a few words. If you want to try the announcements, they're right here.
Shabbat Shalom, friends.
Shabbat shalom.
All of you at home. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Cantor. Thank you, Shai. First of all, it's really great to see your faces. A lot of you, I can actually see your faces for the first time in a long time. As you know, this week, in conformity with CDC guidelines and in consultation with our medical advisory committee, Temple Beth-El went mask optional. So some of you are wearing masks, some of you are not. We encourage you to do what is comfortable for you. And those of you at home, I encourage you to come back when you feel comfortable. I know it's nice on a cold March Friday to, it's much more comfortable to be in your home in front of a computer, but there's something to be said for getting out of your home, away from your devices, and to be in a place of worship with your friends. So as you feel more and more comfortable, please come back. It's a better experience. I wanted to say a few words about what's happening in the world. As many of you know, I was born in Odessa in the Ukraine. I immigrated here at the age of 5. And to see what is happening there now is truly heartbreaking. Last week, I was with my family in Florida on vacation, and really just enjoying the beautiful sunshine, enjoying my family. But it's very hard to process that, but for the grace of God and my parents, I would have been there. I'd be either in Odessa, preparing for a siege. I'd be in Kiev, I'd be in Kharkov, I'd be in one of those cities, fighting for my family, probably dying, killing people, seeing horrors. So, I feel very grateful, obviously, to my parents and my family. I don't have any family there now. Thank God everybody's here. But it's a tough thing to comprehend that so easily I could be there. What we're witnessing there in the Ukraine is true evil, true tyranny, true horror. For years, especially over the last few years, we've been fighting amongst ourselves here in this country over nonsense, over stupid things that some blowhard politician says on one side of the aisle or another. We're at each other's throats over nonsense, over things that are maybe so important in the moment, but are really not that important in the scheme of things. We need to be united as a country. We need to be united as a people and put our differences aside and embrace our differences with each other. That's the only way that we as a people, we as Americans, we as Jews, can defeat tyranny. Because that's tyranny, what we're seeing. That's evil, what we're seeing. Not what some guy or some woman says to try to get votes. So think about that the next time that you get upset because someone says something you don't like. Those are words. Yeah, words hurt. Yes, there's terrible things that go on in our country, but nothing in comparison to what's going on in the other parts of the world. It's not just what's going on in Ukraine, what goes on in Africa, what goes on in the Middle East. Horrors, every day. And we are so lucky to be here in this country. I was born in Ukraine. I don't consider myself a Ukrainian or a Russian. I'm an American and I'm a Jew. And I love this country, and I hope that we will continue to be united and grow more united and not divided. Because it's tyrannical people like Putin that want to divide us. The more divided we are, the weaker we are, the more emboldened they are. So think about that. All right. Monday night is really an important night. I hope that all of you will come. We will welcome Rabbi Stoller. We will have a congregational vote to hire Rabbi Stoller. We'd like all of you to come and vote to support hiring our new rabbi. And then we will have an opportunity to hear from Rabbi Stoller if he'll be here. I think Karen will be here, his wife. I'm not sure about the kids, but yeah, you think they're coming too? So you'll get to meet them, hear from them. We'll have a little get-together downstairs. You'll have an opportunity to interact. It's going to be very exciting. It's a new chapter at Beth-El. It's a bittersweet chapter, but we do move on. So I hope to see you all there. There's some other announcements here. I'll pick a few. Sunday, March 6th, Sisterhood Rosh Chodesh, Adar 2 book discussion, 10 a.m. online. Wednesday, March 9th, Advocates for Social Justice. That'll be at 7:30, also online. There's a Gold Coast Jewish Film Festival, March 10th, 11th, and 13th. Is that also online? I don't know. Okay. What? In person. Okay, very nice. As always, there's exciting things going on at the temple. Go online, look on the website. We're creating a new website. It's going to be a lot better organized, more content, more interactive, more friendly. So I know that's being worked on. Torah study is online and in person tomorrow. And Shabbat morning service will be online and in person. So as I said earlier, If you are able to and you are comfortable, please come and join us here instead of there. Okay? Thank you, everyone. Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, Gary.
So powerful to hear that perspective. And now I am calling virtually Suzanne Marcus, who with her family will be offering Kiddush in honor of her beloved father, who was laid to rest this week, thinking of the sweetness and fullness of his life. She gone? Maybe you'll be offering Kiddush. Suzanne, are you there? Sumar? I think. Okay, we'll do it here, but we will, and if Suzanne's not there, if you are there, Suzanne, just raise your cup and you can join with the cantor. We're on page 5.
ויהי ויבוקר יום השישי, ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויחול אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה, ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי, ויקדש אותו, כי היבו שבת מכל מלאכתו, אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. ספרי, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו, ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים, כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
And let me be sure to thank our bakers, Roberta Lulav and Maria Margoloff, and be sure to linger and say hi to somebody that maybe you don't know at the Oneg. Cantor.
We will close with Shiche ne v'merla Ukraini.
An oldie but a goodie.
Shechene mela Ukraini, ni slava ni volya. Shechenam bratye молодії, усміхнеться доля. Женуть наші воріженьки, як роса на сонці, запануєм і bratia, us volis tondroci, dušu tilu mi položim za našu slobodu i pokažem što mi brati kozacko rodu. Dušu tilu mi položem za našu slobodu i pokažem što mi bratja kozacko rodu. Shabbat shalom.
His story is just
Unreal.
you know,
It is the Purim story. It is the Purim story.
it's crazy. Now, I don't think it's like this.
Right.
Hey.
So your Torah study yet?
I'll come say hello.